Welcome to Selling in the Motor Trade, in association with Automotive Management and symcotraining. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips, and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett, or some of you might already know me as Skippy. And firstly, I want to say thank you for taking the time to tune in. Hi, welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. It's my great pleasure today to be interviewing Mr. Tommy Gibbs. Now, I believe Tommy Gibbs is probably one of the best speakers on used cars I've ever heard. I first seen this man many years ago at the National Automotive Dealers Association. And guys, you'll know I'm a bit of a sucker. I love going to that conference. I think 23 times I've been there now. And let me tell you, Tommy Gibbs is one of the standout speakers at that conference every time I've been there. It's wall to wall, the room is packed because what he talks about on used cars is absolutely sensational. So this is an episode, the dealers out there, you need to make sure your used car managers are listening to this. Used car managers, you need to be studying this episode. And Tommy, it gives me great pleasure to say welcome and thank you very much for your time on the podcast.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the really nice, kind words. I'm grateful.
Well, Tommy, we'd like to start off with a quick fire round of questions just to get to know our guests. So can I ask you, sir, will you be more of a beach holiday person or a city break person?
Probably a city break.
City break, okay. Would you be more of an Italian meal or maybe a curry or a Chinese?
Absolutely Italian.
Italian, love a nice Italian. Well, we had the World Cup over here on Sunday night. So that Italy versus the UK in football or soccer, I should say.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if the Italian restaurants are really busy at the moment in the UK. Are you more of a cold beer or a glass of wine, sir?
Cold beer, yeah, hot summer day especially.
Yeah, a good book or maybe a good movie?
Probably a good book. Probably I can go back and forth on that, but probably a good book.
Probably,
especially if it has anything with business.
Yeah, you like reading business books?
Absolutely. Leadership.
I might pick your brains on some really, really good business books later on then.
Sure.
And are you more of an early bird, sir? Okay, or the night owl?
Absolutely an early bird.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I do both, but I'm up early. No matter what I'm doing, I'm up early.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much. So, Tommy, for people who don't know you, can you tell us, how did you get started in the motor trade?
When I first got out of college, I was a football coach, American football, that is, at a private military academy. And I did that a couple of years, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went down and bought a new car, actually, and got to talking to those people. And they gave me a job selling cars. And from there, I became a manager after 11 months or so. But even prior to that, when I was a really young lad, as you would say, my father had what we call in this country a dirt lot or a clunker lot, just junky used cars, buy here, pay here type thing. And I had hung around that as a little kid growing up. Absolutely hated it. I hated everything about it. My father made me clean engines with Ajax and a scrubber. I mean, I just really hated it. But I had some awareness of it. So when I started selling cars, I just basically did what they told me and had some really great success selling, got into management, and that's the career took off from there.
Cool. Well, this really separates the true motor traders. Do you remember the first car you sold?
Yeah, I was about 12 years old, hanging at my dad's lot. And wow. I think it was like a 1964. It might have been a Fairlane or something like that. So it was a junker car at that time, but yeah.
I gotta say,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you got the record at 12 years old. That was very young.
Well, I don't know if I really sold it or the guy just walked in and handed us money. My memory's a little vague on the whole process. I probably said, hey, do you want to buy a car? And he said, yes. That was the end of it.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, Tommy, I understand if my memory's right here, you're a former Marine, okay, and then you went into basketball. And I believe you're a basketball referee at quite a high level. I think at one of the conferences, I heard you say, hey, listen, please, if you want to boo me, because I'm used to having a whole lot of people. Is that correct? You were a basketball referee? Yeah,
during those days when I owned automobile dealerships, I started refereeing high school basketball first and then quickly went into the college ranks, and I refereed in what's called the Atlantic Coast Conference, which are schools like University of North Carolina, Duke. Those are pretty prominent basketball schools in this country. And started doing that. And yes, I have been booed by 15,000 people at one time. And so when I speak at a large convention, I'm not too concerned about people not liking everything I say. I don't expect them to agree with everything I say. But basketball was very much like being a new car dealer in many respects, in that it's very difficult to make everybody happy.
Right.
So it's hard to make
Yeah.
customers happy, employees happy, and no doubt you're only going to make half the fans happy when you make a call. So there's
Yeah,
some
of course.
comparables. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, are there any similarities to controlling a basketball game? Because I imagine the emotions are very high. You got people yelling at you. Is there any similarities to controlling a good used car operation? I'm probably asking that question too early, but I'm just thinking, is there any similarities there?
I would think there certainly are. I mean, you have to, when you're refereeing basketball, you have to have a vision that sees everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're a dealer or a used car manager, doesn't matter if you're the owner or the used car manager, doesn't really matter, but you got to be really aware of everything going on around you. So I would say that's a key component. Be aware of what's happening, and certainly having a lot of discipline. So you can't, if you don't have the discipline, it's very difficult to be a good referee if you're don't have the discipline, be in the right place at the right time to make the call. It's no different in the car business.
Yeah. Okay. Discipline. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, listen, I understand you're a franchise dealer. You're a Toyota dealership from memory. Is that right?
That was one of my last franchises. I had a bunch of different ones at times, but Toyota was the last one I actively managed myself. And we did a really great job with that product. It's a great car line, no doubt. But I've had a lot of a lot of franchises over here, and a lot of bad franchises. I had Hyundai when it was awful. I had Suzuki when it was awful. So we learned a lot in those years. I had Mazda when it was awful. We learned a lot in those years that has helped me over the years become a better deal operator, because we had to focus on used cars because the new car franchises we had were just so awful. So, the lessons learned there, if you're good in used cars, you can always do well with new cars. And when new cars goes down, if you're good in used cars, you can still make a lot of money.
Yeah. Isn't used cars is the department in the dealership that just has to be right. It has to be right. There's no.
Yeah, and people need to understand that if you're a good used car operator, it feeds all the other departments. I mean, if you're really good in used cars, you're going to make more new car deals because you can step up, you can put the right amount of money on a trade. You've got cars going through service and reconditioning. Those customers come back. It just creates this whole cycle. So if you're really good in used cars, it fuels all the other departments. It makes you a ton of money.
Yeah, my first boss once said to me, he said, "You've got a great used car operator. If you need to bring a car in a bit heavy sometimes to do a new deal, you can do it. You're going to do it.
You know where to go with it.
Yeah, dead right.
You ain't scared.
Yeah. Tommy, I love the idea that you've got someone who's actually done it. You've put your money on the line. You've been all of these different dealers there. So tell me, why did you get into training? What was the transition into training and teaching people how to do it as opposed to doing it for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what happened was someone came along with an awful lot of stupid money and wanted to own that Toyota dealership one day. So I let him own that Toyota dealership one day. And I'd always, as a dealer, I was always involved in training personally. We always had a training center, a training director, a couple of people that worked for them. We were always recruiting and training and always going to workshops and seminars. And I would go, I cannot imagine how many workshops I attended over the years, but I was somewhat disenchanted with most of them because there was all this fluff and puff in these workshops I'd go to. They would try to drag things along for days at a time, sometimes 2 or 3 days. And it was something I had a passion about as far as teaching and coaching, more or less. And so it was just something I wanted to do. And when I sold that and cashed out, I was in a position to do whatever I wanted to do. I'm not saying that in a bragging way, but I was in a position I could go do exactly what I wanted. And I really wanted to coach people and help them improve their business. And I did it through used cars because it's not a whole lot of that type of training available.
Listen, I can definitely vouch for that because on your conferences, you're always like, let's get into it. It's not the fluff and go on to it. People want to know how do I sell more cars? How do I make more money? What do I go back and put in place today? What do I do? Okay. Yep. So if I can go back, and this is a shameless plug for our program, the first 90-day program, but we often say in the first 90 days in the job, people often learn the skills, good and bad, that last with them for the rest of their career. Okay. Can you think of anything when you're still maybe at your father's dealership at 12 years old that is relevant today that someone's starting in the industry now as it was when you started, Tommy?
Again, I hate to keep using this word, but so much of it goes back to discipline and being responsive and paying attention to what's going on around you. when people reach out to you. I mean, I just think it's just that overall awareness. And the number one business philosophy I think that serves us all well is that golden rule concept of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, and that sort of a mindset. You know, if you treat people correctly, that's going to help you with your employees. It's going to help you with the customers. So I think being in business and being in a key leadership position is pretty easy to do.
Yeah, you've using that word coach all the time, and I love that. And we often say, who was your mentor or your influencer? Who did you look up to, or who is the coach? Because I love that philosophy. In the sporting world, we have the coach. In the business world, it should be the coach as well. Did you have any mentor or coach that you looked up early on in your career?
When I think back over the many coaches I had in sports, because I played 3 sports in college and two in college and 3 in high school. Those people all.
Sorry, what did you play, Tommy?
I played football, basketball, and baseball, but in college I played football and baseball. But anyway, when I look back on all those coaches, they all impacted my life, and certainly the Marine Corps impacted my life. But I first started selling cars with a fellow by the name of Thomas Johnson, and this guy was the epitome of enthusiasm. He loved life. He had great, I don't know, he would make you want to run through a brick wall for him, because he was so in tune with what was going on. He was so full of excitement, and unfortunately he passed away at a young age, but he's the guy that is always going through my head, everything I do. I mean, if you walked into, I'm not sure how deals are done in your country, but if you walked into what we call the tower, the sales manager's office, if you walked in there and Thomas was working that deal, it was always, hey, what you got? What's going on? What are you here for? Let's go, let's go, let's go. So he always had this enthusiasm. And if a salesman walked in, that salesman was going to get his attention. So if he was on the phone and he's talking to his wife, the phone goes down, he goes crazy. So in my life, everything I do has been kind of modeled after the coaching I got from this fellow, Thomas Johnson.
It's amazing. Thomas Johnson, and right at the beginning, but you still think about him all the time. What would Thomas do? What would Thomas do? How would he do it?
Absolutely.
So many successful people like yourself, they always have that person that, how would they do it? What would I do if I was them? I love that.
And he taught me, one of the things he taught me, and I don't know how I can put it in words, but he taught me how important every employee was. So from the littlest guy in the dealership who makes the least amount of money to the top dog, he had this way of making everybody feel a part of the team. And I think that's critical in a leadership position.
It's so true. On any team, you can't just do it all by yourself. We can't have that superstar out the front. It might have a superstar, but what's the rest of the team doing?
Sure.
It drags the whole business down. Now, listen, let's get into used cars now, if I may, because that is your expertise, and I love your philosophy on it. But I'd just like to get your views on, how do we stop the race to the bottom? Okay, should a sales manager consistently be chasing to be the cheapest car on the internet? What are your views on being the cheapest on the internet? Is there that race to the bottom? Do we help? What do we do to try and stop that, or can we stop it?
I think we can improve what we're doing. You don't have to race to the bottom on every car. That's the key on every car. You have to be able to recognize those cars that are profit makers. Lots of companies, even like mine, we have software that will identify cars that have a low market day supply and that sort of thing. Those are the cars that you should be making good money on. And what happened in the industry, I don't know, over the last 15 years or so, we got into this mindset of every car has to be priced really, really low to get action on it. And there are some that you need to price super low to make them go away because they're problematic. They may not be the best piece for your, be the best vehicle for your operation, your lot. But what happens is we keep those cars too long. So if you want to avoid the race to the bottom, make sure you identify your problematic cars on day one, price them right, and get them out of here. And when you move those problem cars out faster, then your gross profit on each car is going to improve, because you don't have those cars hanging around later that you just get desperate on and have to give away. So I think it's important to do a couple of things. One, identify your cars that you have the potential to make good money on and be willing to ask all the money for the right car, and make sure those cars that are somewhat problematic, maybe they have high kilometers on them, maybe they're bad color, maybe the equipment mix isn't good, maybe you buried yourself in that car, you put too much money in a car to make a new car go away. Those are problematic. So, but the problem is dealers hang on to those cars. They hang on and hang on. Pretty soon they're 60 days and above, and now they have to give them away, totally give them away, and the average profit goes way down.
It's so true. That overage stock is overage on day one, isn't it? And we know that that's going to be hard work in that color to sell. We know
Yes.
we've had to bring it in too heavy, we would say,
Yeah.
in the UK, too much
Yeah.
money.
Too heavy.
But we think, hey, we'll retail out of it. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. There'll be a bump for it, but it just doesn't happen, does it?
But here's the problem. You and I've chatted about this offline before, and I say this all the time. The problem is that they will have a car like that, and it's a crappy color, high miles or whatever, and they keep it past 60 days, 70 days or whatever, and they actually sell it and they make money on it. And I had a dealer tell me one day in a 20 group meeting, we have a lot of those in this country, in a 20 group meeting, dealer says, Tommy, the problem in the car business is every now and then a miracle happens. And so in our heads, we're going, yeah, I know. And then all of a sudden they get lucky, but they think they're going to get lucky on everything. You're not going to get lucky on everything. Just because that happened one time, it's a really bad bet to think about the fact that I'm going to make money on cars past 60, because the reality is you aren't. I mean, even if you were to make a little bit of profit on that car, if you calculate the return on investment, it really sucks. So why would you keep a car past 60 days old? Now, when I make that statement about why would you keep a car past 60 days old, the first thing in this country that happens in people's heads when they hear that, they go, what he's telling me is that if I have a car that's 60 days old, I need to send it to the auctions, wholesale it, get rid of the car, and take a loss on it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you would have priced that car correctly a long time ago, you would have already sold it and you wouldn't be dealing with it at 60. There's someone that will buy that car if you get it to the right price. If you sell a car, let's say you keep a car 90 days and you sell it for X and you make $200. You get lucky and you make 200. And you've had it for 90 days. My question is, well, if you could have sold it, if you sold it at 90 days and made 200, could you have sold it at 45 days for that same price and made 200?
Yep.
We don't know the answer, but the odds are you probably could, but you just didn't price it right soon enough. So you keep hanging on and hanging on and hanging on and hoping the miracle is going to happen, and it's not going to happen.
I love the idea. Don't wait to 60 days and then it goes auction. That's just madness. Get it right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Listen, Tommy, there's something else that I really picked up from your seminar, and this is this concept of pushing the average price down of your stock. You would say inventory, but we would say stock over here. Keep pushing the average price down. And it took me a while to grasp it, but it just clicked and it made so much sense. Now, I know you cover this extensively on your online training, which is sensational, by the way. I'm going to make sure you tell everyone about that soon. But could you give the listeners a quick overview of the concept of pushing the average price down of the used car stock?
Sure. So every day, if you're a dealer or a used car manager, you should know what your current average cost per unit in stock is at this very moment. So right now, if we look at inventory, let's say, and I know I'm not using the correct terminology for your
That's
money.
fine. That's fine.
But if we look at inventory, and the average cost per unit in stock right now is $18,000. As I see it this morning, we printed out. I require my used car managers to print that out, circle it, put their initials in it, put on my desk every morning. But we look at it.
So every day you get them to do that every day.
Yeah. And by the way, there's only one definition for the word every.
Okay.
Okay. So every day they're going to print that out, circle it, put the initials in. I'm trying to create a focus on that number. So let's say that I don't know what example I used at first, but let's say that number is $18,000 this morning. My mindset is, what can I do to get it to 17.5, 17, 5 to 17, 17 to 16 up? The more I can press my average cost per used car in stock down, the more I get into the used car business and out of the news car business. Now, news cars is a word I made up, and everyone's welcome to use that. You can go ahead and have my permission. You can use the word news cars. News cars means that's when the average cost per used car in stock keeps creeping up and up and up and gets very close to your new car pricing. And when the manufacturers of the factory, the new car manufacturers come out with rebates and incentives and all the things they come out with, you get your head handed to you on a platter, because the average cost per used car in stock has gotten too close to your new car pricing, and a person could buy a new car for what they could buy a used car for. So there's a couple of ways to get that average cost down. One of the ways is to make sure that you try to force yourself to keep some of that cheaper stuff that you sometimes get rid of. Some of those high kilometer, high miles cars that you might not want to keep. Now, I'm not saying you should keep a car that's unsafe, but what I am saying is that I believe every dealer should have on their used car lot a section that has what I would call budget center cars, those cheaper cars. So my point is, try to figure a way to retail more of the cheaper cars that you sometimes don't generally keep. That will help bring the average down. The next best thing you can do is to make sure that each day you attack your top 10 most expensive units in stock. So have your used car manager every day, only one definition for the word every day, print out a list of the 10 most expensive cars in their inventory, and make sure we as a management team, including the service manager, finance and insurance manager, that all the managers get a copy of that list. Everybody has an awareness of the 10 most expensive cars. And what we're going to make sure we do is make sure that we get an opportunity to work a deal on one of those 10 most expensive cars. We try to move them out in a hurry. If one of them happens to be in service, the service manager knows I've got one of the 10 most expensive cars in my service department. I have to get it out in a hurry. The faster you can sell your more expensive cars, the better off you're going to be. And that's going to help drive your average cost down, which makes you a much, much better used car dealer.
Okay. One other question I just wrote down here when you said it, talking about this concept to sales managers saying, but Tommy, if I start selling older cars, surely my reconditioning is going to go through the roof. Actually, my service department, they'll love me for it, but they'll just make a fortune out of me. Do you know what the service guys are charging me for that? Is it worth going through that? Or do you recommend working with the service manager and saying, hey, hold on, we need to do a deal on this and get the reconditioning lower to be able to sell it?
Well, hey, the last thing you said, I think, is really important, that we have that kind of relationship where the service manager, the director of service, will give us a break on that pricing. That said, I really believe, and some dealers are doing this, it's really time that we had a two-tiered pricing system in the service department. And what I mean by that is that we send our cars into service. I'm assuming we do it the same way in your country. We send them in there, and the service department charges us full retail to take those cars to the service operation. And that's very profitable for the dealer. The used car department is, without a doubt, the service department's best customer. It's their best profit maker. But what I'm suggesting is, maybe if we had what we call it actual cash value, ACV, or wholesale value, if we were to determine that a certain wholesale value, we had a different pricing scheme on those cars. So let's say that any car that we appraise or buy that's less than $10,000, we're not going to charge full retail from the service department to the used car department on those cars. Now, what that means is service is going to give up some profit, but it's going to incentivize us as a dealership to keep those cars and retail them. And as a used car manager, I'm going to be more apt to put more heavy, did you call it heavy? I'm going to be more apt to step up on those cars, put a greater amount of money in them when they come in on trade, because I know that I can retail them and I don't just have to wholesale them and maybe take a loss. So it's a win-win thing, but getting dealerships willing to do that is tough. So maybe the thing that you said is if we can get service to work with us. But you know what? You got to be careful, because we will sometimes get locked in and, well, I don't want to send cars in the service because they're killing us. But think about this. If let's say that we do that and we don't make hardly any money on that car because service spent a lot of money on it because it's a cheaper, older car and we had to do more things to it. If we retail that car, we've now captured a customer for our family, for our dealership operation, that may also send other people to us to buy cars and other family members and so on and so on. So I think we have to look at the big picture of all the pluses every time we're able to retail a car and push a car over the curb. And pushing that junker type car over the curb to a retail buyer ain't a bad thing.
See, I love the idea. We have lots of dealers, owners, people who own dealer groups that listen to this podcast, and they can definitely put in that two-tier process. And it makes so much sense. I've not heard anyone else talk about it, and it just makes a lot of sense. I suppose we're going to have lots of managers saying, well, I can't do it because I'm working in a PLC. I suppose the relationship with the service manager, but
excuse me, I want to share another quick idea with you on that. Here's another thought for you. I'm going to make an assumption that your service customers and dealerships there sometimes get coupons for service work. That the dealership sends them out to them, how they get them to them. I would suggest that a dealer or general manager consider developing a coupon with 4 coupons on it, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe those discounts on those coupons are 30%, 20%, whatever percentage they want to put on them. And each month at the beginning of the month, they hand that to the used car manager. And on that piece of paper, on that coupon, they write on there, if a vehicle is an ACV of less than $10,000 or whatever it may be, you can use one of these coupons on that car. So what I'm saying, I'm suggesting that we consider giving the used car manager coupons sort of like we give our customers, but we give them a very deep discount. Now, what I would say to the used car manager, the way I would do it if it was I I would say the used car manager, okay, here's a sheet. It's got 4 coupons on it. You can use it on any 4 cars you want to this month. Next month, by the way, Mr. Used Car Manager, Miss Used Car Manager, if we hit our new car objective, I'm going to give you 2 of these sheets next month. So what I'm saying to them is, hey, you've got an extra tool here in your toolbox. This will allow you hopefully to step up and make some more, go heavy on some new car trades to make us some more new car deals. I mean, sort of giving him a way to him or her a way to step up and do that. So the coupon idea is one that really does work. And by the way, if any of your listeners are interested, I have that set up in a template. I'm happy to email it to them. They can have the template and they can change the percentages any way they want to.
Brilliant. Listen, I'm going to, at the end of this, make sure everyone knows how to get hold of you, how to get all these different things to your website and some of your training, which is sensational. That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, symcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.